Brandon, Bryce Young is still the favorite to be drafted first overall. Is that where you would take him?
I think I still lean CJ Stroud over Bryce Young. I wrote about the quarterbacks this week, and I used three metrics: accuracy, interception rate, and number of starts. Just very basic numbers, just to kind of take a look at them. They're pretty even in those. They both look like pretty quality quarterback prospects. Stroud's a little better. He is, I think, the most accurate quarterback in the draft. He's also been better than Young in big games. He had 6 games against top 10 teams. He put up 73% completion rate, only 1.2% interceptions in those games, including his last game, probably his best of his career against Georgia, 384 yards and 4 touchdowns, good on the ground. He had 2 6-touchdown games in those top 10 opponent games. The concern, though, is Stroud. He's awesome in a clean pocket, awesome in standard dropbacks, 95th percentile or better, but he's had great offensive line, great protection, and elite receivers, like better than he'll have in the NFL receivers, and he struggled under pressure. So I think that the ceiling, there are question marks with Stroud, but the floor is very strong there for him.
Well, conversely, what are your concerns with Young when you compare him to Stroud?
Yeah, look, I think it's got to just be the size, right? It's so obvious, and it's the thing we've been all talking about forever, but he's 5'10", he's 194 pounds. I looked back, in the last 40 years, only 4 quarterbacks under 6 feet have attempted 125 passes or more in a season. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Seneca Wallace, Doug Flutie. That's it. And under 200 pounds, same thing. Tyler Huntley had 125 passes this year. He was the first one since Doug Flutie in 2003. 20 years we went without a 200-pound quarterback. So why does that matter? Well, you got to stay healthy. You're a franchise player. We're taking you as the top pick in the draft. We need you on the field. I worry that Bryce Young might look really good for 4 games or 6 games a year, might look like an MVP for moments, but that size, it matters on every single throw he makes. He's throwing off his tiptoes. He's having to get out of the pocket because he can't quite see over the line for some of the throws, or he's taking a deeper drop that limits you on schemes, on throws a little bit, and that injury concern is very real for me. So to me, Stroud, I think, is the safer play. I'm not sure he really is a top 5 quarterback ceiling, but I think Young has higher variance, but a longer tail of the bad outcomes. So I would take Stroud between them. I think he's the safer play, but I'm not really sure either one of them is really a traditional number 1 pick quarterback for me.
Well, I mean, that's a little disappointing, but it is what it is. A couple other quarterbacks we've been hearing about are Anthony Richardson and, of course, Will Levis. Do you think their odds currently reflect where they should be selected?
Anthony Richardson, the more that I think about him, the more that I wonder if I might just not take him above either one of those guys. Richardson, by the metrics I mentioned, accuracy, interception rate, number of starts, holy red flag city. He doesn't fit any of those things. Under 55% completion rate. He started only 1 season, 13 starts. 3.8% interception is pretty terrible. Those are not the numbers of a top 10 quarterback draft pick. Those aren't the numbers of a top 100 draft pick. They might not be the numbers of a draft pick at all. So why are we taking him? Well, watch the tape, because you see like one play from this guy and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to have this guy in my team. It's like we created a 99 rated Madden player at tight end with the tight end's body and the best speed that you can possibly give someone, 99th percentile, 40, 99th percentile, broad jump, vertical splits. And then we're like, okay, what if we taught you to play quarterback also? And that's the part that we don't know still if it can happen. But the numbers this guy has at 6'4", 231, he gets compared to Cam Newton. He ran the 40 2/10 of a second faster than Cam Newton. He had a 6-inch higher vertical than this dude. So he is literally like, guys are bouncing off of him, running down the field. He broke 39 tackles on 97 runs this season. And I think, too, he's got to improve on accuracy a lot. Like that's the whole thing with quarterback in NFL. But there are some underlying numbers. He has a high average depth of target. I think that's skewing the numbers a little bit. He's got a pretty natural pocket presence and gets the ball out quickly. Very, very high bust potential, no doubt. He is not a good NFL quarterback right now. But in a league where you need to shoot for the stars and try to find that MVP, the guy that can win everything, I don't think that Stroud and Young necessarily profile as that. Richardson, if he hits, is the one guy in this class I think that does profile that way. I think he might be worth the risk.
Hey, I'm excited just listening to you talk about him, but what about Levis?
Yeah, Levis, I think, is getting a lot of that same sort of hype that I just gave. Similar red flags and similar hype. The problem for me is I think the red flags are just as red, and I'm not sure that the hype is quite as high. So, sub 65% completion rate for him, really inconsistent mechanics on his throwing, 3.5% interception rate. He in PFF this year, he ranked 101st among all quarterbacks in passes they deemed accurate, 54%. That is basically half of your passes. So this is a guy that has a cannon for an arm, but he's actually really terrible throwing the ball down the field. He threw an interception about 1 every 8 passes this season downfield. He's making a ton of mistakes. He got sacked about once every 3 pressures this year, and he turns 24 in June. I forgot to mention that with Richardson. He's 20. So that is 4 extra years of development time that Levis has already had. And he's catching up on age to a lot of these guys that are already MVP candidates and in the Super Bowl. I think we're going to get a lot of Josh Allen comparisons for Will Levis. And I think Josh Allen, the drafted version, that's fair, but Josh Allen is the exception, not the rule. He had huge outlier development. He was a project and then some with a lot of red flags coming out of college. I think we got all the red flags and we might not get the Josh Allen upside. So for me, Will Levis is not the number 1 hype or number 2 hype that he's getting. I don't think he's a first round pick at all for me.